Hey, Louise, Eloise. I've been going on over the last 24 hours, and wow, I think everyone's been on tender hooks. It's been insane. How are you feeling? And thank you for coming on to our show, Eloise.
Lovely to be with you. Lovely to be with your audience. Alpa, are very in admiration for the work you're doing. So I love the fact that you are standing in your power and telling your truth. And it was a pleasure to come and talk to you today.
Yeah, no, same. And I was right back at you, Aloise, because I've been following your journey. It seems like God knows years ago since we did our first show on your on the Dharma podcast. When was it? I think it was in September. And I don't know about you, but the last 3 months have really felt like eternity. The first half of the year went very quickly, even though we were in lockdown. But from September onwards, right through to the end of last year, so much has happened. It's felt like a year, those 4 months towards the end. And I don't know about you, but this is like an emotional roller coaster. And I think some of the things that you teach are so important and relevant, like right now. And I'd like to talk about that today, about grounding and, the necessity of grounding, especially in times like this, because as truth is as well. So I'd like to say something quickly about that. I see myself as just a normie that has just realized that a lot of bad things were happening on the planet. And while I've considered myself to be a little bit of a curious soul and a loner in sort of spirit and different from people, I've just been living in my own bubble. And then all this stuff has happened, and oh my God, we're living the greatest movie that's ever going to be told. But I am very appreciative of people like yourself, where we learn about things like grounding. I love talking all things Akashic Records and spirituality. And I think you have been so pivotal in this movement with Charlie Freak, with your podcast every week, and with what's his name, the guy that you do. Josh, and the other one. Do you do it with Santos as well?
I don't know, not Santos. I know
you haven't done with Santos, but yeah, but he does some great stuff, but it's all within that same sort of subject. So a big thank you for what you're doing for the community, because you're holding the light. You're holding the light a lot more on the spiritual side. I feel like I'm a bit of a Facebook assassin, really focusing on what's going on with the elections. So thank you.
No, thank you. No problem. But I think what's so wonderful about you and what you're doing is you've just leaned into your role. And that's what I would say to anybody listening, is we've all got a part to play, and it's doing what you feel comfortable with. And, well, I say comfortable because I do believe comfort zones are made to be stretched. But I suppose a better way of looking at it, it's where you feel you fit into the big jigsaw puzzle. So, for example, myself, I kind of was privy to a lot of this information, 15 years ago. And it felt so massive and so big then, I just didn't know what to do with it. So I just intuitively knew that I just was here to wake people up. And if we could shift consciousness on the planet, then we could change things. But again, I didn't really know how I was going to do that. But that's the beginning of the spiritual journey and the spiritual awakening. And as you've discovered, Alpa, like when you really lean in, you're just guided.
Yeah.
So the last
15 years though, Aloise, that's a heck of a long time. And I have that a lot with people on my show that say they've been awake for a very long time. I feel like a complete novice in this. It's 9 months in terms of what's been going on politically with the children, and basically how our world has been operating for God knows how long. I paid little attention to that. I was paying attention to what was going on inside me for the last 10 years. So it's almost like I was spiritually equipped to deal with what was thrown at me, at a 3D level. However, 15 years is a long time. May I ask them, how did the journey start for you? What was your experiences 15 years ago? What did you find out that, attributed to your awakening?
Sure. Well, my whole life fell apart. So, I think we have agreements, and I think we have contracts before we come in. So I think you had a contract to wake up when you did. And I think we can't awaken all in one go, because it would be
chaos.
So we kind of wake up in different stages at different levels. And so for me, my primary lesson to begin with was healing in health and wellness. My mother suffered with very bad chronic depression, to the point where she tried to take her own life a couple of times. And unfortunately, it was kind of like what I would call a learnt behavior and a pattern that ran down the female side of my family. So at the age of 21, I found myself having a nervous breakdown.
Wow, it's a lot to see your mother in that situation. Deep wounding.
It was hidden, actually, in my family. It's the shadow. Obviously we're seeing the collective shadow coming up now. I think, yeah, and I think all families have. I would like to say, in the past, all families had secrets. It was almost like we had alcoholism and depression in our family, which was the family secret. And so I actually didn't find out the extent of the family secret until I was 28. And by that stage, I'd been suffering with depression for 8 years. And I think, in hindsight, I know my family, they just wanted to do the best, as families do for all of us. And so I think they felt by talking about it, it might mean that I would get it. Whereas actually the opposite was happening, was because I hadn't seen anybody go through it or talk about it. I didn't think I was normal.
Rejection.
And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know who to tell. So I just drank alcohol and kind of just tried to forget about it, and thought I was just a bit abnormal, and couldn't understand why I had these kind of big depressive episodes. And, then it would come out in, a lot of it was to do with my emotions. In our family, we didn't talk about anything. We didn't feel. And as we're seeing with this collective awakening, a lot of us have been taught to put our trauma and to put our dirty secrets and push them down. So what happens when you first spiritually awaken is you start to feel again, and all of that stuff that you've shut down starts to bubble up to the surface for you to look at, and for you to process, and for you to heal, and for you to deal with. But of course, nobody, again, in our society, we don't talk about the 7 alchemical levels of spiritual evolution. So we don't know what's happening to us. So we think, oh my God. And so that was exactly kind of the journey that I went on. For 8 years, I was depressed. And then my spiritual awakening was about 28. I had a sort of simultaneous Saturn's return with my mum. My mum was actually tried to commit suicide, and I was guided to where she was with voices in my head.
Wow. So do you think that was at the time when you started, would you call that channeling?
God, do you know what? That woke me up so much, Alpa. As you can imagine, I went from being a girl who didn't have any faith to somebody who instantly had faith. Yes. Because, in my family, that my dad was an atheist, my mum wasn't really very religious. I didn't really know. But actually I realize now the reason I was so lost in my early 20s is I didn't have my connection. I didn't have my connection to the higher power. So at 28, when that happened, it was catastrophic, but obviously my mum, was okay. But what it opened me up to was my higher connection. And that was what I'd been seeking. And then from that point onwards, I lent into it, like just as you have done, this last year, I kind of was like a bit of a sponge, and went out and tried to learn everything I could possibly learn, first in kind of personal development.
Was that 1 year, or was that 15 years ago?
That was 15 years ago, 15
yeah. Years ago, okay.
Yeah, so at 28, basically, I had the spiritual awakening. And I suppose when you've got somebody talking in your head, and you've never had somebody talk to you in your head before, and that the voice literally guided me to where my mum was. My sister was saying to me, well, how do you know we turned right? And I'm like, I'm just being told to turn right,
Wow.
It was such a wake-up
question about that. When you say voices in your head, because this is really powerful, and I think the viewers will really love this. And I'm, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I'm so humbled. That's brave, and that's that's vulnerability and courageous, because a lot of people find it difficult to share their stories. so openly and courageously. And vulnerability is something that we're not taught. We're not taught any of this. We're not taught to, lean into our emotions and, really feel them and really honor them. We're just told to suppress. So the voices in your head, literally, I get downloads. This is why I want to know about this, because I'm trying to let it all flow, but there's this sense of knowing, and I don't know how I know, but it's not voices. So what happens to you? What are you experiencing? So if you were to describe it like accurately, what happens is it literally someone talking to you?
Well, I think there's different levels. So in that instance, it was like a booming voice, like, Magenta Pixie describes, talking in her ear. Normally my connection probably similar to how you experience it now. I get nuggets. I always believe when with the ego, you can tell the difference between your higher self and your ego by the way that the thoughts come in. So I tend to find if something drops in, it's like a ding, and it's like, oh, that's a great idea. That is because it's coming from somewhere higher. If it's kind of a negative thought or a program, then generally it will be ego related. And so, of course, once you start to quieten the mind, it's easier to distinguish between the two. And generally speaking, obviously, the ding is usually a higher, it's kind of like a high vibrational thought or idea. Right. And then I think I said to you, Alpa, this is my best friend.
Yes, yeah.
Because then I can test and check actually what type of idea it was, whether I should action it. For those of you listening, I've got a pendulum here, and while you're using a pendulum, it helps you increase the connection to your higher self. And so from that's how I get my information. And then what I tend to do, I don't have, now I don't have voices speaking to me. I've had it a couple of times. Usually it's when there's kind of heightened situations. But normally what I do is I just have a kind of ongoing dialogue with my higher self, with my guides. I'm asking them questions. I'm asking them for solutions. And then I just let go. And then I find that, they'll provide the answers in some shape or form.
Yeah. And they guided you to help you with your mum.
Yes, I just still don't know to this day. I feel like it was my grandmother coming through actually and talking. But
that's what I was just going to say. So I just got, was there some kind of ancestral guidance that supported you in this? And did you get a feeling of who it would be? And you've just said your grandma. So yeah, again, so now what's happened to me there instantaneously is someone's helped you. So it's not literally voices, it's a guide, but it could be a family member. So I start picking these things up with people, and it's just not knowing how to tune in. Like really, it's like, oh my God, I was warned about that, or situations that happen, because I still feel there's a bit of a disparity between that connection where I feel I'm still kind of 3D. It's just that unwiring of really connecting internally acutely, if that makes sense. So it's like saying, yep, I know that. See, I learned this technique where I stand straight, literally stand straight, and I close my eyes, and we find out our yes and no's. And it's an emotional freedom technique where you're kind of like just asking a question. So you first find out, you can ask a basic question like, is my name Alpa, right? And you'll see which way your body leans forward. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
Yeah, you can do it like this as well. You can do it through using this. You can do yes or no through so basically you would ask a yes or no question. It's whether it's strong or whether it's weak, but you'd have to set the weak and strong.
My name,
and it's a bit like muscle testing, basically.
Is my name Alpa?
So yeah, is my name Aloise is strong. Is my name Alpa is weak.
Is my name is my name Alpa? Yeah.
Strong. Yeah.
Is my name Aloise?
Weak. Okay. And then you can do the same with your arm. So you can do the same with people, and you basically, because you're muscle testing, but your consciousness knows who you are and what you are. And so if I said my name, obviously you would be pushing me down, but my name is Aloise would be strong, and then my name is Alpa, I wouldn't have any strength.
Yeah. Wow. And look at how much hidden knowledge there is about these things. Our body has the most amazing ability to heal itself, and we've got so much so many powers. We deal with our five senses so much, but little do we know about our sixth sense as much. We talk about our gut. I mean, our gut is the second biggest brain. It's the brain of our sort of spiritual compass as well. And we hold so much information in our gut. But we don't trust ourselves enough because we're not taught to.
Well, also we've been, like you said, we've been forced into our left brain, and we've basically been taught to distrust our right brain. And also, when you've got a lot of trauma, and when you've got a lot of trauma that you're holding down, your energy system is having to use a lot of energy to suppress all of that negative energy. So as you start to go on your spiritual path and you start to wake up, and then you start to do your healing work, what you're doing is effectively integrating that energy into your energy system. So they say raise your vibration. What they're talking about is you're raising your vibration because you're integrating that dead, stuck energy that you've been repressing. So the shadow work that everybody's being encouraged to do right now on the planet is for exactly that reason, because what we repress will keep coming back. It's like your shadow wants to be integrated. So situations will kind of pop up because your shadow is saying, well, hold on, I don't want to be over here. I want to be integrated into you. So and of course,
triggers, right?
The way I would probably just describe it is the parts of you that have been disowned, because basically your shadow is like the part of you that's been disowned. So if you imagine, let's take you through an example. So for people listening as well. So when we're little, we are taught that certain things are acceptable in our family environment and certain things aren't. So if you think about where you got love in your family, and also what wasn't acceptable in your family. So I'll give you my example, and then maybe you can share yours. So in my family, I think I said to you, being emotional and crying wasn't acceptable in my family. So that literally was part of my shadow. I was not emotional. And now, I've worked with lots of people, and obviously it ranges from talking about feelings, talking about emotions. It could be something really bad happening, like abuse in the shadow. But generally speaking, it's a way or certain type of behavior that we're not allowed to do. So can you think of things in your family?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things when I started and embarked on this journey was I didn't even have a plan or an agenda. I came out and I was like, oh my God, this is, crazy about what's happened with the children. Anyway, sort of 9 months down the line, I'm here without any kind of map for this journey. And I think a lot of people can say that. In that though, before all of this had started, in my own personal journey, I have had quite a lot of trauma, and the ability to be able to speak about it will come naturally at some point when my inner sort of child is ready to perhaps speak about it, because I know it will help people. And I sort of get stunted when I start talking about it. But exactly the same as you, emotions were very suppressed growing up, oh God, I get a bit flustered. I get a bit shy when I start. See, look, it's happening again, when you're trying to speak about an emotion or an emotional wound from a young age. I just seem to get stunted. But
so that's the inner child. Basically, what you're experiencing there is her inner child. Because again, the shadow work and the inner child work is the stuff that we've got to do. Otherwise, we just project it inadvertently onto others.
Yeah, and I think for me the biggest sort of challenge was speaking about things publicly, because being from an Asian culture, it's the shame.
Yes,
it's the shame culture, and keeping things very preserved and not, washing our daughter's dirty laundry in public and speaking about.
So that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
That is
so, and I get that. I mean, I'm very sort of vocal with people I trust and, my friends, and I've been really open about exploring my emotions and how I feel, and doing the shadow work and doing that inner work, which is why I feel the strength that I have today to do what I'm doing, and really not caring about the sort of repercussions of people's opinions or that, because right now it's come to the right Dharma. Right? And you understand this more, or understand this very well. And it's the call to righteous action. And for me, it's just this energy that came in, and suddenly I didn't even think about my public speaking fear or the shyness that I have. I used to get very shy very easily as from a little girl. So
the cause is greater than the pain. So
yeah,
you totally got out your own way because what you were fighting for basically completely diminished what the self-consciousness that you were feeling. And that is, I love that. I just want to pick up on that, Alpa, because for people listening, you know, that is such an amazing way to motivate yourself to lean into your purpose. Like whenever this year for me has been massive. You know, I've had to get out of my comfort zone and do big shows, you know, and I didn't even like being on camera, you know. So, but the way I do that is I focus on who I'm serving and who I'm helping. And if I can just do one conversation that helps one person, and like you just experienced, it totally shatters the sort of nervousness we have around doing what we need to do, really.
Yeah. But this journey took me, and just very briefly, because I just want to come back to the stuff that you teach, but what this journey, this inner journey over the last, I'd say, 37 years, because it's been quite turbulent for that long. And, you know, from perhaps, I don't want to reveal my age here right now, but, you know, it's been quite long. Yeah. And that understanding that I get so many people from a variety of different walks of life. I just pick up on energy. It was this very empathic nature that I'd have, and something would tell me, it's like I can smell their hurt. I can smell someone's pain, and I can really feel it. And I used to feel like the energy would catch on to me, their energy. And I'd feel drained quite a bit because I didn't understand. I wasn't taught how to protect my own energy. Of course, now I do. And you've really helped me in the last week as well, coming on the public arena. And I do a lot of protection work as well. We have to because energies are so rife at the moment and everything's all over the show. And the demonic energies are crazy right now. And, you know, we have to protect ourselves all the time. And I think the lack of awareness with all of that stuff is because we're so consumed, and that vulnerability right now to speak about what we're speaking about, it gets me personally into a tears, because it's like, oh my God, I don't know where to start. How do I say it without kind of saying too much? And all of that stuff happens and it's like, shh, quiet, you know? So it just I end up sounding like a fumbling fool, you know? So that's one of the things, to suppress speech, to suppress expression. And for me, that's been the greatest challenge. You know,
well, I think you've done bloody well. If this is you, like in a year, then you know that's fair play. Thank
you. But you know, I know that's where I'm just always inspired by people all the time. So like when we did our first chat, Aloise, it was really nice because I think I was in full flow. I was just come off Charlie Ward's show. I think you must have heard me on one of his shows then, and I was like Save the Children, talking about that with this like huge energy. That would have been in September. But look at the sort of cycles we're going through right now. We're learning every single day, not only something new at 3D level, what's going on with Trump and all that madness, but spiritually, I think we're learning something every single day.
And that's the way it should be. You know, if you think basically what they have done, the cabal have kept us in poverty consciousness, they've kept us in materialism, they've kept us in the consumerism. Everybody is fighting to survive, and money has been the way that we perceive that we have to do, you know, what we have to do and how we achieve. And so people haven't developed their spirituality. And so we've been spiritually bankrupt, really. And it's only since the energy on the planet has been rising, you know, since 2008, really, where meditation, mindfulness, all this stuff has like really come in. And now obviously we're seeing this mass awakening as we go into the age of Aquarius. And now what's wonderful about this is actually our birthright is to have abundance. And this is what I'm doing my latest challenge on, is helping people clear out the blocks that they've got from past lives and blocks in the Akashic Records they might have from the current life. Because there's multidimensional beings, we work on 3 levels. You know, it's you and I are in the 3D, we can see each other. So we have to take action in the 3D. The fourth dimension is our thoughts and our emotions. So that's why visualization, having vision boards, thinking about what we want is so important. And then obviously clearing any blocks that we've got from past lives really helps us. So what we're seeing is humanity is kind of going into this period now in the age of Aquarius, where we're going to go into this golden age, but there's still work to do. We have to work on ourselves. We have to clear our poverty consciousness. We have to clear our shadows. We have to do our inner child work. And actually, all we're doing is really our spiritual evolution. We're doing our spiritual journey. And that's where I come in and I thrive, because having gone on this journey for the last 15 years, now I get to help others. And that's obviously what I do with my Dharma Life Academy.
And that's amazing. That's amazing. So you teach and you do yoga as well, right?
The Dharma Life Academy is a monthly membership where I teach different programs. So I have a Do Your Dharma program, which helps people discover their purpose and understand how that works. Because often we think, I don't know what my purpose is. But again, we've totally been fed a lie. We've been told to get the proper job and stay safe and all this rubbish, where actually what you should be doing is doing the thing that really excites you, because you can manifest and create the reality you want. And actually each of us have almost like a soul blueprint that because that's what I can do with the Akashic Records, is I can go in and I can see your exact blueprint. Right. So for example, with myself, I know that I'm a 40% communication soul, 20% wisdom soul, 20% power soul, and 6% truth.
Wow.
So what it gives me is a blueprint, so I know where I need to be functioning and how I need to be operating. So, I like to have an understanding of what is going on in the planet, like everything that's going on right now. I know what's going on, but I don't feel it's my focus. Because I'm a power and a wisdom soul and a communication soul, I know I'm a teacher. And it gave me that confidence to know that I'm a bridge into this kind of fifth dimension. And what we can do in the Akashic Records, I can see what you are, what your blueprint is, and then I can see how in or out of alignment you are in the 3D reality and in the 4D reality. So when I do my coaching work, when I'm working with someone, is I go in and I look at their soul blueprint, and then we basically say, well, what is it you want to create in your life? And so they'll say, okay, this is my vision for my life. And what we'll do is work together to remove any blocks. Say, for example, you had, like I had, Alpa, I'll share this with you. I had a past life where I was a kind of, well-known, quite well-respected, rich, famous woman, but I got criticized. And apparently I got criticized quite heavily for some shape or form. I didn't get all the ins and outs of it. But I had a program and pattern running that you can't have it all. Right. And so if you've got programs and pattern running like that, it means it impacts this reality. Yeah. So if you've got past life stuff, so for example, speaking up, you might have past lives that are also influencing this life around you speaking up. And the reason you were matched with your family is because energetically and vibrationally, you chose that family to overcome those speaking up issues. Now, unfortunately, that's karma, and generally we tend to repeat the pattern. When we go in the Akashic Records, I can clear it. So it means it becomes easier for you to step in to who you want to be and who you are at soul level.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you that we do choose our family, and everything that happens in our lives is ultimately because of us. We are responsible for everything that goes on and the blueprint of our lives. And I love this because a lot of people ask me over the years, what is Akashic Records? And I stumbled across all of this over the last 10 years. So within my inner journey, I was looking at past lives, coming into contact with healers along the way, some good, some not so good. And you have to be careful in this sort of journey because a lot of charlatans out there. So I have been kind of stunned. But it taught me a lot in this sort of silent journey that I was going before any of this. And I actually did got a very good healer that I speak to now. And it just so happens that I did have a past life where my tongue was chopped off.
That's going to affect you.
So for speaking out, and I have a past life where this whole subject of the children as a trafficked child, possibly. So And so everything, this sort of anger, this rage that I'm feeling right now, it was just insane. I know everyone's feeling so much, but I just never will forget the day that I found out, and I just was broken, but to the extent I just didn't want to live. That's how bad the pain was, and it took me 3 weeks to recover. And I just remember going into my mum's room, going to my mum, and just crying and sobbing. And that was a massive release, because after I walked out the room, it was almost like this background music sort of went off, and it's this Shakti rising. So all I could think of was the Mother Goddess, and that's all I could feel, and I could hear it saying that this is you are doing something here now, and this is your duty. This is your duty and your call to action. And I was just like, but I feel really like broken and going into victim mode myself. Yeah, because oh my God, I don't want to live. I can't be dealing with this. How can we live on a planet like this? I didn't realize, how can I have not known? And it was going through these crazy moments. And then along the way in this journey, within this trajectory, I realized, okay, and everything started piecing together with past life connections. So I absolutely hear you that it's really important to clear these past lives. Let's go back to the Akashic Records, where for a lot of people who don't understand that, so it is the blueprint of our life, of our soul journey. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if you think of that, a lot of people visualize a library, yes. But realistically, your soul has had many lifetimes, and every single decision that you have ever made is stored in the Akashic Records. So when we make choices that are towards our soul's blueprint, we create positive karma. When we make choices that are away from who we are at soul level, we create negative karma. So often what I found since I've started doing this work and is that all these people like you and I had some karma, for example, I think I said to you previously, but of course I can clear it. So what I found now is that everybody coming into my space, I check with them whether I have any karma with them, and I keep clearing it.
Maybe that's why I kept forgetting to ask you when I really, like, this is really bizarre, and let's talk about this, because you've been on my mind, and it was just like every time I went to send an email or something would get stuck, and I'd just forget about it. And I just sort of like fob it off as me being a bit of a Dory, because I am. It's like a 5-second memory, and then I just don't know where I end up. But it was like almost like a resistance to do this, because I wanted to speak about the Akashic Records. And I know we can speak about the elections and all of that and what's going on with Trump, but I want to offer a bit of diversity in what I'm really about. And it's not just this. And this sort of stuff really floats my boat. The Akashic Records, past lives, spirituality, this is really where what I've been looking
so interesting.
Over the last 10 years. And I never really had an outlet to speak to anyone about it, because the people that I know, my friends, they don't get it. They in fact sort of mock me and sort of like, oh, here she goes off with her numbers again. So it's even talking about it now, there is so much understanding about everything that I hear. But as I'm evolving on this global sort of platform, I'm slowly becoming more and more confident. It's not that I don't get it or understand. I know so much about these subjects, because it's like, oh my God, I started like 2008. 2008 is pivotal for me, really, really pivotal, because it was the start of my downfall. In my work, within my engagement broke off. I mean, so many things sort of happened for me. So it was the start of the dark night of the soul for me. And it was literally by 2009, it was the darkest night of the soul for me. So maybe one day I'll speak about that. But yeah, going back to the Akashic Records, how did you learn all of this? Did it come to you? So going back to the voices in your head, was it something that just came to you saying, Aloise, right, you're gifted now to be able to teach somebody about Akashic Records? This is where my curiosity lies.
So a very dear friend of mine, who's also been she's a friend and a mentor and a teacher, she was doing this work a couple of years ago, and she said it was really powerful and impactful on her life, and I trust her opinion. And at the time I was running a organization, a global leadership organization, and I was looking for ways to help to help myself in that organization. Like, I wanted to step into the leader that I was, and how the Akashic Records work, if you imagine, like, I believe that everything is inside out. So what I mean by that is what you think, feel, believe inside is reflected back to you externally in your reality.
100%. Yeah.
So the way I look at kind of what's outside is it's my mirror to what's going on inside. And so with the Akashic Records, what you do is you go in to the Akashic Record and you basically, first of all, find out who you are at soul level, but you also find out, you know, if there's any dominant lives that are blocking you in this lifetime. Now, I ended up probably working with the lady that I work with for maybe, to be honest, probably about 2 or 3 years, or kind of on and off, because when you do clearings, you then have to wait a month or so before you can do another session. But what I experienced was my soul vibration rate increase. So all of us have a kind of consciousness level. And as you do this work, you're releasing blocks to your soul vibration increasing. And so what that basically looks like is all the things I started to want to achieve, I started to achieve. Now, how it works is you have to be aligned on all 3 levels. So I'll give you an example. In my spiritual business, in money and business, I'd never had a problem. I was in the corporate life. I made good money. Money, I've been very blessed, touch wood. I've obviously got good karma around money. When I first moved into working within a spiritual business, I couldn't make money for love nor money. And I couldn't get it because I was like, I don't get this. I've got high money consciousness. I don't understand. Anyway, working with the lady that I worked with then, I discovered that I had had a past life where I was a teacher, and I'd made it almost like an agreement with this lady that I was working with that I wouldn't charge for my services. And so consequently, that past life was influencing me in this life. Now, to say it was like turning on a tap, it was really weird, because I did this session, and then since then, people, clients and things have flowed, and that was a couple of years ago. And so
when you say that you discovered this past life, was that through your own damage or through your mentor?
No, that was the lady that I was working with. So basically, my husband then went through the work as well. And so he went through the work. And for example, he had a vow of silence, and he was a monk in a past life. And to give you an example, my husband used to drive me mad, Alpa, if I'm honest, because when we first got together, he was divorcing his ex-wife, and he would never share with me what was going on. And it used to make me feel like some psycho girlfriend, because I'd always wanting to know what was going on. But what I discovered was that he when he did his work, he had a vow of silence. So again, when we cleared this vow of silence, my husband went from 0 to 60 and suddenly started to speak his mind like I've never heard him speak his mind. And I remember, because what happens is you get a rush of vital force energy. And I remember saying to him, Matt, you can't go around talking like that. It's not going to work. But it takes a couple of weeks for it to settle down. So I'd had such good results with it in my own life that I just thought, I need to learn this. So that's kind of how it came about. And then I just started studying it and taking programs and courses like anything else. And then what happens?
Do you do one-to-one like this now with your clients, with that you help?
Yeah, what I love to do is I love to work with people who are leaders, who are really serious about making a difference on the planet. And then we go in and we create their vision for their life. And then we go in and we see what's blocking them. So, for example, when I removed the block in the 5th dimension about this life, because I was still taking action in the 3rd dimension, things started to flow. Like, you can't, I don't want to give people listening to this the wrong idea. I can't remove the blocks and you just sit there and you get what you want. It doesn't work like that. You know, you have to do the work, but in all dimensions. But if you're working really hard and getting nowhere, the chances are there's something going on which we can unblock. And so
getting to that, because there's a lot of people I know that go through that. They, work really hard within, outside, but just really kind of at loggerheads with the sense of achievement, getting to where they want, repeating the cycles, repeating the patterns. And now, knowing a little bit about my own journey, I can sort of identify that, there's maybe past life issues there's ancestral patterns. Patterns are so difficult sometimes to see. But one of the things, just while you're on that subject, and I don't need to get you off course, is that I did a simple exercise, which the lady that I was working with said to me, look, Alpa, you've got to do the work for this yourself. You know, we can do a lot of prayer work and do some past life clearing here. However, you yourself, as a conscious being, a sovereign being of light, you need to do some of the work. Take responsibility for your own vehicle, for your own life, for your own self. So, and it was just a simple thing, but you're so right about going into the 4D, the visualization. So everyone listening to this Aloise is very right. You know, you have this visualization board. So I did it of my family on both sides, dad and my mum. And I went back to 3 generations. So my mum's mum, my mum's dad, their parents, and then their parents. And I think we went one more. And I had this huge family tree from both sides. And suddenly, and my mum was brilliant at helping me because I don't have any contact with all these. And you know how it is in Asian families that we're so kind of cliquey and close.
Yes.
Even though we're not, everyone's fighting and, you know, hating on each other behind the scenes, yeah. But, you know, just to kind of get an understanding, so that, okay, Mum, what happened in this family? What happened in this family? There were so many apparent patterns within both sides of the family. So I'll give you an example. With my dad's side, it was all the women within one, and I come under this, all remained single.
Interesting. Okay.
None of them have got married, barren. All barren women.
Well, you see, what you can do, Alpa, is you can go in, and I can go in, and I can say, do you have any blocks and restrictions to relationships? And then what happens is I get information around. So, for example, you might have bought into a collective illusion around staying single is safer. Like, that's just a random example, but we have things called illusions and imprints. So imprints run through family generations. So I'll give you an example from my life, because it sounds to me like you might have a generational imprint around staying single. Like, the big thing in my family is food and like weight and everything. And I had an imprint from my female side. It was all around, if you can't beat them, join them. So in our family, it was like, well, if you're going to eat, you're going to eat, you know. So that it's just an example, because you've probably got imprints around relationships. So we can remove those. But what you have to then do is, and that's why coaching and this works so well, is because you then have to do new things. So it means dating. You know, you can't expect just to sit in your living room, you know, and somebody will come to you. So it's getting the balance right between the action in the 3D, but once you clear the blocks in the 5D, it's a lot easier for it to manifest.
And that's so true. Going on that subject, I think and I'm aware of this, and I think that, especially here in the UK, I become a little bit sort of sheltered and inhibited with the whole dating thing, because the dating apps for me, I find really laborious. It's just, especially with the lack of conscious beings on there, it's just a breed of narcissistic type of people on dating apps, because that is what social media and all of these dating apps have kind of created. So look, I'm doing it again, aren't I?
No, only because I wanted to help you with this, right? Yeah. So that is a pattern that you're right. Well, what's the point? I'm not even going to bother, because there's nobody out there. Now, I had a very similar belief that was blocking me before I met my husband.
You should be doing it as well, yeah.
Yeah, because you're blocking yourself before you've even started. You're like, well, why would I get on a dating? Like, this is said with love, obviously.
Yeah, of course. No, and everyone listening, you know, we're all kind of being vulnerable here, and I know you never know the person that, you know, that might be watching this, that might be the one. You know.
My God, you put that out there, you're going to be men batting down the door. But what I was going to share is it's like law of attraction. So I went on a dating app. I met my husband on Tinder. Now, I said exactly who I was, and the fact that I was, you know, I wasn't, you know, out there flying a flag for, you know, for whatever then, but I was still like a woman on a mission to change the world. I still put a woman on a mission to change the world. This is what I'm looking for. I was because it's waste your time, right? You want to just clear out all the losers. If they're intimidated by your profile, good. It saved you time.
Yeah, I get a lot. People get very, very intimidated. That's the feedback I get, and I'm like,
Yeah, but the right man won't be intimidated. And my husband read my profile and went, wow, she sounds amazing. And his was like everything, like tall, dark and handsome, whatever. But, again, he wasn't intimidated by what I wrote. And, that was it. First date, 10 hours, second date, 10 hours, married. No, not married, but moved in after about 4.
Wow. That's really powerful. That is really, really powerful. I think sometimes we become lazy. Well, I feel I've become lazy with the dating, with the dating world, because we create subconscious blocks within these patterns, these programmings, and especially with what's gone on in the last year. It's just a friend of mine, few friends that are single, and I don't really kind of have much communication with these particular friends because we're just not now on the same mindset. They're still very much on the other side, and we're here on the awakening 5D side, and they just don't get any of that. So just for that simple reason, my connection with them is so limited. But I realized it's like, oh God, how are we going to find a man now in this thing? And again, I sort of found myself, like, how are we? Like almost inheriting that kind of emotion and all of that. I didn't realize this until now. I'm just picking that up now because I haven't bothered looking at all for anyone right now.
Right, you and I are going to work together. I'm going to help you with that.
And I just haven't. And I've just been like, oh, I've got Kenzo now. And it's like, my friend told me off the other day. She goes, Alpa, you didn't get Kenzo just to substitute a guy. She goes, you just, you used to always encourage us, be on it, be on dating apps, go out there. She goes, what's happened to you? You've just literally gone into saving the world and this children stuff that you've just forgotten about some of the things you preach to us about. And just in this conversation, it's kind of ignited that feeling. It's like, there's always a reason for something for these things to happen.
Absolutely. But absolutely. And that's exciting. It's really exciting when we see things. And I think if you imagine that's exactly how the Akashic Records work, we're not even privy to how we're blocking things. We don't know because we have this illusion that we're just buying into that isn't true.
Yeah.
And so
it's just not thinking about it. You've just really pointed that out, Aloise. So thank you so much. It's like now I'm just thinking, why haven't I? Because you just become so gung-ho. And I'm that kind of person. Once I get passionate about something, it's almost like deviating from that path. I will not do it. And
that's fine, but we just build in a man who is passionate about it too. But actually, and now you get very clear on your vision. So I would always encourage, anybody to do the vision work first before they do. So really, you clear the blocks in the 5th, you do the visualization and the ideal man in the 4th, and then you take the action in the 3rd. But they have to all align. You don't want to do one without the other. It doesn't work. You can't do the top 2 and then not go out and do lunch dates. It's just false economy.
In tier 5 at the moment, like we'll just do picnics.
Well, you could do Zoom dates. That would be great. At least you don't have to climb out of windows like I had to at restaurants. Believe me, I did. Oh my God, a couple of times.
I have some hilarious dating disastrous stories, but maybe as I evolve on the public, not just yet. But some of the most funny is like we're talking about Tinder. Oh my God, the kind of people that I attracted on Tinder. Some very funny stories there, but. Going back to just before, I know we've got a few more minutes before we end the show, and then I could go on for another half an hour here, an hour, probably 3.
Well, we could do a bit longer. That was good.
Yeah, no, we'll do some. I'd like to do another show with you anyway, because we've just kind of scratched the surface really here, and I just wanted my viewers to, kind of, I'm sure there'll be loads of questions. Maybe do a question and answer session at one point. See how this show is received, because there are going to be quite a lot of questions and. About what you do, how you teach people, and
it's exciting.
I love the name.
I think that's the thing, right? It's so exciting because we've woken up to the fact that we are powerful and we can create our reality. And now what we get to do is create the reality we want. And what I'd love to just share is the challenge that I'm doing on the 25th of January, because it's called Unlock Your Abundance Challenge. And effectively, but abundance is our birthright, but we have been programmed with poverty consciousness and we have been misled through materialism and consumerism. So we're going to be blowing the lid off all of the misnomers that people have bought into. And as I just said, we're going to be doing Akashic Records activations where we clear out the blocks that people have got. We're going to be visualizing where we want to be and how our future looks in the abundant 5D earth. And then we're going to be playing abundance bingo, which is basically to encourage people to take action in the third dimension. So you'll get a bingo card and there'll be different tasks and loads of fun things that people will, because, you know, why not? Life's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And then there's prizes, and there's, you know, a prize to win a full Akashic record reading with me, which is like, you know, 3 in 1, which is about 750 quid. So it's a good prize.
Yeah. So I'll have all the details. You'll give me all the details of all of this. So I'll put it in my description box below of this video. I mean, I think all of this stuff, you're right. We forget to have fun in this journey sometimes, and we have to. I mean, for me, sense of humor is the most important thing. I absolutely have had. I have to say,
put that in the profile of a man that you're looking at. Must have a good sense of humor. We're going to write these things down.
SOH. That is always on my dating profile. Sense of humor is a must. And of course, you know, there has to be a chemistry. You know, you have to have chemistry with people, but you can't tell until you meet someone, you know. I did have a question for you and I've just completely slipped my mind. It was to do with the Akashic Records. And okay, so when you're working with people, do you start off there with the Akashic Records first and you sort of then work down, you know, first of all, you find out what it is they're trying to achieve and you go and sort of identify where their blockages are?
Yeah, so you do, you can do it 2 ways. Like, the best way to do it is to like, depending if you're committed and you can afford to work with me kind of on a consistent basis, I'd say let's do 6 months, and then you probably do 1 reading every month. And then what we do is we go through, we look at your soul blueprint, we look at any blocks and restrictions in your soul, we look at soul realignment, we clear, so I can clear negative thought forms and stuff as well. So what I mean by that is, if you say you're better caught in a loop of negative thinking, I can go in and I can see what lower level thinking you've got and I can clear that.
What about memory, like distracted sort of thought processes, lack of memory, scatty memory?
Yeah, like guilt, shame, lack, self-worth, anything that kind of, because if you imagine it's vibrational, so what we're doing is we're raising your vibration. So we want to clear anything that is blocking you having a high vibration. And then what happens through the process is you increase your vibrational state. So your soul vibration rate increases. And then the other way I can work with people, this is just like a specific thing that people really want, that their health, for example, we go in and we look at all the blocks and restrictions around health. And we unblock them, and then we do have to do this action plan, because, you know, I can do my bit, but you have to do your bit.
You have to do your bit, yeah. This is the question I actually wanted to ask you. Given what we've been exposed to in the world now, and what we know at the other side of this, what are your thoughts about spiritual and spiritual coaches, spiritual mentors who are still not on this side of, you know, this awareness of what really has been going on with the children?
Great question.
So what are your thoughts?
Great question.
Where people that align with that? Because for me, I'll try and be as coherent as possible as I can with this, because it's all a bit scrambled in my mind. But I have gone to say in the past, because I've always been self-employed, so I thought, well, I need to develop myself, you know, personally. So I used to go on all these courses for my sins, NLP. I done NLP with this guy, I won't mention his name, it's quite well known. I would walk away feeling like, yeah, this is great, because it's a momentarily a sense of feeling of being elated, and you like, yeah, like I can do this. But then there'll be a huge like low afterwards. But I would learn a lot of the skills and I'd find it okay, but I would never connect. So about 3-4 months later, I just would forget everything that I learned, that I paid for on those courses. So I wouldn't retain that information. Then I've been on, like, say, another person who's a life coach, but they're so not awake. They're aligned with all these corporate people like the Richard Bransons and the Mark Zuckerbergs and all these people. One, maybe because they just genuinely didn't know, like a lot of people innocently did not know, and they've gone about their lives teaching and being coaches without realizing this dark side of people that they're sort of using as role models. So what I'm having a little bit of difficulty is that, when you're now looking at all these people that are life coaches, that are spiritual coaches, they're still aligned with the wrong energy. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, first of all, that is a great question, really great question, and one that I pondered myself for quite a long time. And this is where I've got to with it. So again, what I've seen in the Akashic Records is people can have blocks to actually seeing what is happening right now. So it's almost like you can only see yourself and see the world at the level you've met yourself. So I suppose what I mean by that is, again, some of us have had more past lives on the planet than others. Some are younger souls, some are older souls. I know just from talking to you, you're a very old soul. It's who you are. Now, some people have blocks. Like, I've cleared them. I've actually gone in and cleared people in my circle. You probably don't know that. But I've cleared their blocks because they had a past life or past things blocking them from seeing what was happening right now. So just because somebody can't see and is caught in the mainstream media narrative doesn't make them a bad person,
no.
At all. And I think we have to be, our role now moving forward as everything gets exposed is we have to sort of obviously, help those people. But I was fascinated. Why do some people get it instantly and why do other people not? And so that's kind of what I discovered. The other answer to your question is it's been very difficult. I think the new age consciousness has been designed as another trap. So you have what we call consciousness traps, and most of humanity have been kept in the poverty consciousness trap. Now, we've been programmed into poverty consciousness, but when they realized that this planet was shifting, the vibration was raising, they realized they're going to have to distract people. So you look at the likes of Oprah Winfrey, what better way is to pull people into this new age consciousness, Deepak Chopra, whoever, who they're teaching good stuff, but they're not teaching you how to become enlightened.
No.
They're not teaching you the 7 alchemical levels. They're not teaching you, like you said, NLP will improve your life, but it's not going to teach you really how to raise your vibration.
No, because it's constructs of the cabal. It's cabal constructs.
It's a distraction technique.
Yeah.
Now, where it's confusing for everybody now, and this is something relatively new in my own development, like, how do I know who to listen to? How do I know who to trust? Now,
yes, very good. I want to touch on that.
So by doing the work, you're developing your spidey sense. Okay. Any teacher that says, I'm the guru, you're the student, get rid of them. It's all about personal sovereignty. People should be encouraging you to really step into your own power.
Absolutely.
And now some teachers, I think some teachers, maybe in their contracts, like, I don't know this is my feeling. I feel like some of the kind of maybe the bigger ones, I'm not naming names, but maybe they're not allowed to talk about this stuff. Maybe it's in their contract, which is, where have we heard that before? They've got a contract and they can talk about this and they can talk about that. That's potentially also going on. But I think the best thing for people to do who are listening is this is why I go back to my little pendulum friend, because your higher self will be able to discern what is right for you and what isn't. So I will listen to something. If my higher self lets me listen, often I will turn something on and it goes, well, no, I can't even listen to that. That shows me it's not in alignment with me. But if I am listening, I just go and I check and I ask a question. Is this true for me? And is this information I need to take on board? Trust yourself, but be discerning. Just because somebody says they're a light worker doesn't mean that they are the type of light worker that you really want to work with. So, this is a really personal, individual process for every single person listening. But my best advice is get one of these and start to use it in your everyday life, because part of ascending is integrating our higher selves.
100%.
Now, to integrate your higher self, you can't go to the gym one day and build muscle. I wish I could. I'm starting to work out again, and it's a bit of a shock to the system. But it's the same with your higher self. You have to use tools and you have to integrate it and you have to work with it. So the more you start to build a connection with your pendulum, with your higher self, the more you'll integrate your higher self, and the more you will be shown the right information, and you will just know what is true for you.
Yeah. Yeah, because it kind of ingests your energy. It is working within you. It is your sort of compass, your sat nav, and it's again dealing and really integrating within your sixth sense. And I think that's what's navigated me without even me consciously being aware of it, that I've been so guided. I do pray. I don't do things conventionally like my parents have taught me to. Everything has just been an inner compass guidance. And I just say that in all my shows. So I don't even know how I know certain things. And I feel very, very gifted and blessed because of that, because it has helped me a lot quicker than later to see now things that, oh God, I dodged a bullet there. And like maybe in friendships, relationships, or just in all areas of my life. And as I've got older, I've learned to discern and really being able to protect myself. Growing up, very open, just the world was great, rose-tinted glasses, had a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff that's happened, but this bubbly personality that I was just suppressed. I realize now just how strong I was, especially with sort of my gematria, the sacred gematria of my birth time. Yeah, I'm born at 11 minutes past 11, and that number for me, that number for me is really prevalent in everything, and it just started bombarding me in 2015, and I think that was really like the angels desperately trying to tell me, Alpa, there is a journey for you from this. This is not what you're about, where you've had to go through X, Y, Z for it to be a guidance and a place for you to reference by means of understanding or understanding other people. So you get it because you had a glimpse of all these kind of like traumas in your life where therefore you are going to be able to help humanity. And being a Virgo, and love being of service to other people. I don't really identify with all of these labels and stuff, but I'm fascinated by astrology. But it's just about helping you kind of learn about yourself, what's your soul purpose, what's your life path number, and then you kind of integrate all these kind of gnosis and learn, of who you are, because that is the biggest question: who are you? And unfortunately, because of this poverty conscious lack-based mentality, this conditioning of the cabal, we are identifying with the wrong things, with the wrong things, the wrong people, like idolizing celebrity over like worshiping God. That's become quite prevalent in the last 10 years, more so with the advent of social media. Idolizing, pop idol. So we're almost sort of subliminally being programmed to idolize the wrong people, and then comes with that they're who they are as people. So we're forgetting self, and self is not your title. You're not a doctor, you're not a daughter, you're not a son. You are, these are sort of labels, but they're not who we are. So it is the journey to self-actualization in who we are, and working within our within all our senses, but that wholeness, mind, body, and soul. You're not your mind, you are not your body. And a lot of the yoga principles are, yoga is a way of life. It's doing your Dharma, as well as you doing all the sort of physical exercises, but it's who you are as a person. That's the essence of true yoga. You're doing your
The way I love to describe it is you go from doing to being.
To being, because we are in who we are. Oh gosh, I've really enjoyed this one. I think we need a part 2, and I'd like to do it sooner than later, for sure. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this, because I've really enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please inbox me on my Facebook if you'd like to ask Louise something. Aloise, I keep calling you Louise because I've been speaking to my friend all night last night. Inbox me, and all of her details will be at the description box on this video. So Aloise, thank you so much. I've just completely into this conversation, and I could go on forever, but I think it's a great point to end. And thank you so much for being
my pleasure, darling. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it as well. So let's do
lots of information.
So we'll do
part 2 very soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dharma.life podcast. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Please come over and say hello on my Instagram, our Facebook group, and also please let me know what you thought. So if you are listening, please take a screenshot of the podcast that you are listening to, tag me on Instagram and I will reshare your post. And please let me know what it is that you got out of today's episode. Remember, when we do our Dharma, we are happier, healthier, we live longer, and we have a deep sense of unshakable inner peace.